This is a Sports Catastrophe production.
Hey there, Heather, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. And the birthday boy for today, April the 14th, is a legendary baseball player who is infamous for a lot of reasons. But, you know, his story is huge. Now, I know April 14th is also the birthday of my cousin Heather, and actually, when I was supposed to be born, I was born 5 days early, which isn't that bad, but anyway. This man's a legend. I can't believe haven't done it on this day a birthday boy on this guy. You know it. If you see the picture, you know who I'm talking about. If you're just listening to it, he was a legend for the Cincinnati Reds, Philadelphia Phillies, and for half a season with the Montreal Expos. He was a legend. Unfortunately, though, his gambling problems cost him dearly. His name is Pete Rose, who was born April 14th, 1941, one of four children. He did a lot of things and all that. He went to a Class AA team in the Dayton Amateur League and played catcher, second base, and shortstop. He had an uncle who was actually a scout for the Cincinnati Reds, and at the uncle's urging, the Reds, who traded away a number of prospects who were actually very good, decided to take a chance on Rose. So he signed a pro contract with the Reds. This was before the Major League Draft was a thing. So anyway, during spring training against the White Sox, the Reds would have their second baseman Don Blasingame pull a growing muscle. Rose was made to play second base and made the most of it. And during spring training, he was given the chance to be Charlie Hustle because of the fact that he sprinted the first base after drawing a walk and all that. Rose adopted that nickname as a badge of honor. Rose would actually start off ingloriously at Donut for 11 as a hitter. He finally got his first hit on his 12th at bat. So anyway, despite starting at 0 for 11, I mean, Willie Mays had a longer batting drought, if I remember correctly, when he started his career. He hit 273 and was named the NL Rookie of the Year. He would go to the U.S. Army Reserves and signed to Fort Knox for 6 months of active duty, followed by 6 years of attendance with a battalion thing. Anyway, he was actually a company cook, so that he could actually participate in Army exercises and then leave early enough to play in Reds afternoon games. Anyway, Rose would actually be benched for most of his second season. However, he went to the Venezuelan Winter League to improve his hitting. And it worked because in 1965, his third season, he led the NL in hits with 209 and finished sixth in MVP voting. His 312 batting average was his first of 9 consecutive seasons in which he batted 300 or better. He would hit 16 home runs in 1966 and then moved from second base to right field the following year. He would finish second in the 1968 MVP voting to Bob Gibson of the Cardinals. And when you look at Bob Gibson and his amazing career as a St. Louis Cardinal pitching in that season, you knew he was MVP. Although it'd be a little tainted because pitchers basically had too much of an advantage over hitters, and then the major leagues decided to change things up. Anyway, he set a career high in 1969, batting 348 with 16 round trippers. He looked pretty good in all that. Rose won the batting title narrowly over Roberto Clemente. Pete Rose was also known in baseball circles for what he did at the 1970 All-Star Game. In Cincy, in his home park, which hosted the 1970 All-Star Game, Pete Rose singled off of Clyde Wright of the California Angels. And after a single by Billy Grabarkowitz of the Dodgers, hope I said that right, he was on second base. Jim Hickman of the Cubs singled the center. Rose was going to the plate. Abel Otis of the Royals tried to throw the ball to Cleveland catcher Ray Fosse. Unfortunately, though, the ball was over Fosse's head, and Rose still barreled into Fosse to score the winning run. Fosse would have a fractured and separated shoulder, which did not get diagnosed till 1971, and Fosse would not be the same either. His power was diminished, and he tried his best. Rose did miss 3 games with a bruised knee because of the collision. In 1973, he was the NL MVP and helped the Reds face the Mets in the NLCS. In a, well, after all, he did help the Reds make the World Series in 1972 and lose a 7-game series, a close series to Oakland. But Rose was known for that NLCS for negative reasons. In Game 3 of the series, where the series tied 1, Rose was on first base when Joe Morgan hit a double play ball to John Milner. Rose, of course, slid into second base to break up the double play, as you pretty much do. Unfortunately, though, Bud Harrelson, the Mets shortstop, thought it was a little over creative and decided to brawl with Rose. It was a bench clearing brawl. Shea Stadium would go nuts, throwing objects at Rose from the stands. It almost was a forfeiture for the Reds. Fortunately, though, the Mets did calm their fans down. The Mets won the game 9-2 and won game 5 in the NLCS to deny Rose a chance to get another World Series chance. Rose was part of one of the greatest dynasties of the 1970s, the Big Red Machine, that had Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, and Tony Perez, future Hall of Famers, on the team and all that. He was a leader. He would move from the outfield to third base by 1975. Anyway, it strengthened third base and helped the Reds out because then Rose's outfield position would be taken by George Foster and without the benefit of a designated hitter in the NL. It's huge. Rose would be part of the Reds' chance in 1975 to win the World Series against the Boston Red Sox and in one of the greatest 7-game series of all time, which practically that World Series was given more focus by the American public because of a 3-day rain delay in Boston. It was huge. Rose would do quite well. He would bat 370 with 10 hits in the 7-game series and was named World Series MVP and was given the Hickok belt for top pro athlete of the year and sportsman of the year by Sports Illustrated. Rose was a major force in helping Cincy win the 1976 World Series, sweeping the Phillies and the Yankees, as they are the only team since the LCS era in 1969 to go undefeated in the postseason. So anyway, they swept the Yankees out of there. Rose picked up his 3,000th hit in front of 37,000 plus fans at Riverfront against Montreal pitcher Steve Rogers. However, that wasn't the main focus in 1978. He had captured the hearts of baseball fans by putting on a hitting streak that people thought was going to get close to DiMaggio's 56-game streak. The streak started quietly, but by the time it hit 30 games, he practically would have the media take notice and all that. Famously, on July 19th against the Phillies, Rose had no hits through 8 innings, and he walked. His team was trailing the ninth, and it was thought that the streak was over because he couldn't get it back. However, the Reds would bat through their entire order, gave Rose another chance, and he put up a bunt single off of Rod Reed to get to 32 games. Rose's hitting streak was huge. He would put up a 44-game hitting streak, tying Wee Willie Keeler's National League record. That was around since 1897 at 44 games. But he whiffed in the ninth inning against Gene Garber of the Braves, and it was over. Anyway, so yeah, he had a 44-game hitting streak. And then he decided to go to Philly as a free agent. It was huge. They signed him to a 4-year, $3.2 million contract, the highest paid athlete in team sports. But remember, this is 1979 before salaries astronomically went up. So anyway, Rose decided to move from third to first base. Well, obviously he had no choice because Mike Schmidt was at third base and he's an all-star. Rose would help the Phillies win the 1980 World Series. He was famous for Game 6 of the World Series for the second, I believe it was the second out of the top of the ninth, the Royals, when Boone had a pop foul go out of his glove, but Rose, backing it up, lunged and got it with his glove, meaning that that was an out. So yeah, Rose got his World Series win with the Phillies. And in 1983, he had his worst season of his career at 42 years old, or 3 years older than I am. He batted 245 with 121 hits and was actually benched for a while. He would have to play and pinch hit periodically. I see. Everyone thought he had seen his better days. I mean, 42 is humongous to be in the World Series in baseball in the first place. However, Rose would do well in the NLCS against the Dodgers and go 5 for 16 in the World Series for the Phillies against the Orioles. Unfortunately, though, Baltimore did win the World Series in 5. Rose was 1 for 8 in the first 2 games in Baltimore and was actually benched for Game 3. Rose was not too happy with being benched, and in the final 2 games of the series, Rose went 4 for 7, despite the fact they lost the World Series. The Phillies gave him his unconditional release, and Rose refused to play a limited playing role with the Phillies. That's why he left Philly, and somehow he decided to sign with the Expos, which was a shock because, I mean, why Montreal? It just didn't make sense at the time. So on April 13th, 1984, in a, on this day I did yesterday, mind you, I told you about Rose hitting a double off Jerry Koosman for his 4,000th career hit during the Expos home opener, which they saw Pete Rose in a white Expos jersey for the first time, and seeing Dave Van Horn without the rug on his head. Regardless, Rose played 95 games with the Expos and batting 259 with 23 RBIs. Somehow he was traded back to Cincy for Tom Lawless. So anyway, back in Cincy, he was named player manager and all that. He would help the Reds pitch and all that. Rose is actually the last player to be player manager in MLB history. So anyway, 1985, he was just making things happen. And, there was the fight to break Ty Cobb's 4,191 hits in a career. That's what Rose had to do. He had to be who he had to be. And then, of course, there were rumors he was going to break it in Cubtown. He was in Chicago. He didn't want to break it. He wanted to break it in Cincy, not in Chicago with the Cubs. And he nearly did. So, anyway, it was just amazing what happened. Well, anyway, on September 11th, before I was famous for another reason, Pete Rose singled off of San Diego pitcher Eric Shaw, bounced it to center field, and got hit number 4192. Anyway, Rose would then get to 4,256 hits by the time he ended his career. His last at bat was August 17th, 1986. There were rumors that Rose would use corked bats during his pursuit of Cubs record. They actually found out that 2 sports memorabilia collectors owned Rose's game-used bats from that season, had them x-rays, and it was corking. And all that. Anyway, Rose pretty much retired as a player and all that, finishing with many major league careers stuff. He looked pretty good. But he was still Cincy manager until August 1989. He put up 426 wins with the Reds, making him 5th in Reds history for wins by a manager. In his 4 full seasons, the Reds were second place every year in the NL West. Unbelievable. Rose got in trouble because he actually made contact with Dave Pallone, an umpire, during a massive call that went against the Reds, again with the Mets and all that. You know. Anyway, Rose had forcibly pushed the umpire twice with his shoulder and forearm, and you can't do that. He was ejected and all that. So anyway, he was given a 30-day suspension by Bart Giamatti, who was the NL president. All that. Anything. But unfortunately, Rose's problems were huge because in 1989 there were rumors circulating of him gambling on other sports. Betting on other sports is one thing, but when it was revealed that Rose probably bet on baseball, then a whole can of worms was opened up. Because absolutely, the fact that the matter was that you can't bet on the sport you're playing and all that. Rose did state he did bet on football, basketball, and horse racing and all that. John Dowd was made to investigate charges against Rose and found out that there was a day by day account of his betting on stuff from 85, 86, 87. And it said that there was alleged bets on 52 Reds games that Rose did it. And the actual figure was about 2,000 a day. Rose kept denying it and all that and refused to appear at a hearing and all that. So practically on August 24th, 1989, Rose accepted his role to be part of baseball's ineligible list. And Bart Giamatti said, it's a sad day of affairs for baseball and all that. So anyway, Rose could reapply for reinstatement for 1 year. So that's what he was planning to do. Rose was then, of course, Buddha's best manager because of the whole ineligible listing. The sad news about that was that Bart Giamatti died 8 days after announcing Rose's suspension, which was like unbelievable. And a lot of people said, what if Giamatti was still alive? Was there a deal to get Rose back in baseball or whatever? Anyway, Rose would continue to deny until 2004 when in a 2020 interview, he actually decided to come out clean to them. But a lot of people said Rose only came out clean about his baseball gambling because he was paid many dollars for a book and all that. Rose had to be sentenced to 5 months in prison for filing false income tax returns. Of course, he was, even though he's ineligible for the Hall of Fame, there were artifacts of Rose's career at the Baseball Hall of Fame, and the Reds did retire as number 14. Anyway, Rose was allowed to take part in the 100 greatest players of the century thing for Major League Baseball, and he was on the field in Game 2 of the series, which was the live ceremony. But NBC's Jim Gray basically peppered Rose with questions, and Rose did not like it and all that. And a lot of people were outraged over Gray's aggressive questioning because it detracted from the ceremony. So much so when Chad Curtis hit a game-winning home run in Game 3, he refused to talk to Gray. So anyway, Rose was huge and all that. So anyway, he came clean, but that was because of a whole book thing. Pete Rose actually was part of WWE because in 1998, WrestleMania 14 was held in Boston, and he was made to be the guest ring announcer before the Kane Undertaker match. And he made several bad statements towards the Red Sox fans and all that. Kane gave Pete Rose a tombstone, which made everyone cheer. One of the loudest pops in WrestleMania history. So anyway, his personal life was weird. He married Carolyn Engelhart in 1964 and had two children, Fawn and Pete Rose Jr., who actually went to the majors, but unfortunately for Pete Jr., he was basically overshadowed by his father. He did have a daughter with a different woman out of wedlock. He would marry Carol in 1984, in which I mentioned when I did the on this day yesterday that they did it in a courtroom so that she could get on the plane. for Expos games and all that. They had two children, Tyler and Kara, who was born 2 days before Rose's banishment from baseball. And Rose said that I can't wait for the next year because I can but go for reinstatement on the day my daughter turns 1. But Rose would file divorce from Carol in 2011, citing irreconcilable differences. While separated from his second wife, he actually had an open relationship with a Playboy model named Kiana Kim and all that. There was actually a reality show which followed Pete and Kiana and his two stepchildren and all that. They had been engaged since 2011. Anyway, Pete Rose did his job and all that. He still holds many major league records, such as career at bats 14,053, career hits 4,256, singles 3,215, games played 3,562. Only player to play 500 games at 5 positions. First base 939, left field 671, third base 634, second base 628, and right field 595. Most careers doubles by a switch hitter 746 because of a switch hitter. Most consecutive seasons of 100 plus hits 23, and most seasons with 100 plus games played 23. Anyway, he was a legend and all that. And you can't deny that P. Rose, despite his gambling, despite being a stick in the mud, he was an icon for baseball. And baseball loved him for a while. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Diamond.